YouTube, what's up? That's a pretty sick looking car. For being their worst tooling, I like it. I love that stance on this thing. Just a big, aggressive Baja stance. But everybody knows this is an awful tooling by Greenlight standards or any premium brand standards. Now they do an amazing job with the deco. The deco on it is killer. Here is the same tooling with the original civilian dress up. It's just way off. It doesn't look right. There is some semblance there of a 240Z, but not what you would expect. All right, the reason I show you these, I did today pick up this. This is amazingly better. I mean, I actually like this one. So, I don't have a lot of battery life left, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I give this a 2. You can go back. I did a video back when it came out, and I said, this is out of 10, this is a 2. It's officially Greenlight's worst tooling. Okay, this one here, I give a solid 6. I know the bumper it's not straight, but outside of that, this is a 6. So I've spent the last 20 minutes trying to figure out why. Why is this one so much nicer than this one? Why does it look so much better? And then I had another thought on the Breezy, which I wheel swapped. Same wheels. I put the same wheels on it that the blue one has. And yet it looks nothing like it. So I couldn't figure out why. What is so different about it? Because it's clearly the same tool. But here's what I found. And I'm so glad that Greenlight was able to make these changes, because at least now they can put out a respectable looking 240Z. In my opinion, this right here is respectable. It's very decent. It's a 6 out of 10. Guess what? I personally give the M2 a 6 out of 10. I wouldn't say one of these is any better than the other. The M2 has 2 bases. One of them, the one you're looking at, is too high. The other one is too low, and it's not right. It screws up the entire stance of the car. So, I don't know. With this one, I'm trying to figure out why the blue one looks so different. They both have the raised axle. They both have the same wheels and tires. They both have the same spacers on the wheel. Very important. Anyways, M2 got the side window better. No doubt about that. Greenlight got the stance better. No doubt about that. That right there, my friends, is why I call this a tie. By the way, the M2 window, side window, is too big. But it's quite a bit too big. It's not as much big as this one is small. This one is more than 50% smaller than it should be. This one is probably only 20% bigger than it should be. And I'll explain why I came up with those numbers in just a minute. Because I am a mathematician with a very high IQ. Not really, but... But anyways, so here's what I found with this particular release. Because, I mean, you have to admit that from this angle, that looks really good. That is a damn good looking Z. And another thing to remember with the 240 or 260 or 280, you can take any of those old Zs, they're very hard cars to replicate in this scale. And you look at all the brands that have done it, going all the way back to Lesney, none of them are good. None of them. The first one that came out that was proper is this one right here. Everything about this car is spot on. It's a true 1:64 replica. Every line, every curve, every proportion is spot on to the actual car. So, when you compare that, now granted, it's a 260. The Greenlight is a 240. The Greenlight is probably a 1:68 scale. The M2 is, I think, pretty close to 1:64. I don't know if I'd say spot on, but it might be spot on. But anyways, all right, let's start out just so I can clear up the side window. You know what? Maybe the M2 is not 20% big. It just looked like that originally because of the 260Z has a B pillar, and this 240Z does not. And I'm not sure if it should have one. I think it should, because the Greenlight has a B pillar. So this car should have a B pillar. So that's a -1. So I think it's fair to give this a 6 and this a 6. But I also think it's fair to give this orange one a 2. And most of these others. The Baja I gave a 6. That Baja, probably a 5. But that's a 2. That's probably a 1. That, on a scale of 1 to 10, is a 20. So let me show you guys what I found. Because it's all the same parts. It's the same tool. It's the same base. It's all the same. Now, obviously, the first thing you notice with this is the wheels. I think when this one came out in Tokyo Torque 1, these wheels had not yet been completed by Greenlight. These wheels made their debut on the Datsun 510 in Tokyo Torque 2. These wheels are far more conducive to this casting than these wheels are. But the wheels alone are not enough, as seen here. It takes more than just getting the proper wheels to make the car look right. And so that is what I want to show you guys. I want to show you exactly what they did. All right, so to do that, I'll try to do this on camera. It might be hard. The axle. So inside of the axle casing, the axle runs across the length of the base, or the width of the base, rather. It's so hard to see this on camera. I don't know. The axle is right up against the bottom of the casement, which, you know, it's not really viewable on camera, but it is. It's, oh, this is better back here. It's right up against the bottom of that axle encasement. Now, when you take the blue one It is not. You see that? You see how far down it is? There, they put a spacer on the back side of the axle encasement to push the axle down that way further. And what that does is it shores up the gap between the fender and the top of the tire. And while we're looking at this, let's just notice how nice these tires are. That is a really nice looking 1/64 scale tire. Nice tread pattern. Well job, Greenlight. Well job. Well job. Good job. They did the same thing here with the front axle. So like I said, what that does is it pushes the axle down, or actually when the car is upright, it pushes it up so that the wheels will sit higher up into the fenders. The other thing that they did, when you look at this one, they didn't do it. They didn't really need to do it on this one because these tires are so massive that they pretty much hide almost everything behind them. But this one here that I wheel swapped, they clearly don't. So what they did on the blue one is they painted everything behind it black. So that part of the base and the casting, the whole wheel well is painted black. So that hides any of those gaps. So by lifting the axle, which is what they did, they lifted the axle and they painted the fenders black, and then they put these proper sized wheels and tires on. And that's another thing. You look at the wheels and tires, look at the difference in the size of the rim. These rims are way too big for this car. Way too big. This would probably be the equivalent of having 22s or 24s on your 240Z. This is probably the equivalent of having a 15-inch wheel, maybe even a 14-inch. So they made a few changes, and I think the result is very good. I think the casting looks so much better. I mean, you look at the orange one, you see how the front of the car kind of points up. The stance is all wrong. The wheel wells look goofy. It looks cartoony. You look at this one, which is the same tooling, and you don't have really any of that. I mean, it's proper looking as far as the stance goes. I mean, I think the stance on this is great. What really ruins this car is that side window. Because with this configuration, with the lifted axles, and I shouldn't use that term because it, well, when you hear lifted, you think lifted truck, but the axles are pushed up further. They're I don't know how to describe it. I guess inset, because they're set in higher than all the others. And they have released another one. This casting was released with this exact same configuration, but I did take the wheels off of this one. But I will get some more wheels for this one, because this is only one of two that I have that came with the spoiler. So there are things that I really like about the Greenlight 240Z now that they've corrected it, but I still think it's their worst tooling, and I still overall I don't think it looks great. At least this to me is respectable. This, when I look at this, I think 240Z right off, and I can't say that about this one. I see this and I'm like, huh? What is that? I see this and I know, oh yeah, it's a Nissan or Datsun. But what I think Greenlight did really well is just from this rear quarter angle, which this right here is the most unforgiving angle of a 1:64 scale diecast car. This angle will expose any casting flaw that there is. If there's a stance issue, if there's something off with the body, if there's something off with the proportions, this angle will show it. An example of that, but I don't think I really have an example of it, but this angle, it's going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, look at that. That right there looks like a Johnny Lightning to me. All of that gap up in there, that is so Johnny Lightning. But here, the stance is great. I mean, this stance is on point. It's so on point. I wish the bumper was set straight, but not too worried about that. I'm just happy to have a decent looking Greenlight Fairlady. Here's the test though. This is the benchmark. This is what you compare it against, is this car right here. Because that right there, my friends, is proper. It doesn't get more accurate than Tomica Limited Vintage. Now granted, this is not a 240Z, but the cars are close enough and it still gives you a good general idea of the slope of that rear curvature. And like I said earlier, historically, this is a very difficult car to do. And so, you know, say what you will about how bad the Greenlight is. This TLV is the nicest. I think this one here is tied for second nicest with the M2. No one else has done a nicer one. If they have. Oh, I take that back. Kyosho. But even Kyosho's, you know, like on a scale of 1 to 10, I give the TLV a 20. I give the Kyosho probably an 8. Maybe a 9. Probably a 9, because it would have to be more than 2 points better than this. But anyways, all I'm saying, guys, I'm very pleased with the improvements that were made on this tooling. They desperately needed to make changes, and they did. And they did it without having to retool it, because I don't want them to retool this at all. I want them to scrap it and start fresh. But we know that's just not going to happen. So, if you know you're not going to make a new tool, what's the next option? Let's take the tooling we have and let's see what we can do to improve its overall look. And by painting the back and the inside of the fenders, of the wheel wells, and by pushing that axle up, higher up into the chassis, I think they made the car a respectable looking Datsun 240Z. I mean, from this angle right here, this thing looks a lot nicer than the M2. Here's the Greenlight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the M2. You guys might, I don't know, maybe you guys think the M2 looks better. The M2 definitely looks better up in this area, but the stance, everything from the top of the door down, in my opinion, looks better on the Greenlight. It's just a proper stance on the car. And we know M2 struggled with the stance because they, after releasing the casting, they made a new base for it. The point is, 240Zs, there aren't a lot of them in 1:64 anyways, that are good. So if you want a good one, You're going to have to get the Tomica Limited Vintage 260. Good luck finding it though. But at least that will give you a really nice example of a fair lady. That TLV is so wicked. That thing is just perfect. I should have left the M2 wheels on this one for the video. What I think I am going to do is I'm going to take these white letter tires and put them on this blue one. Give it a little bit better look. So anyways, I can't believe I just wasted 21 minutes talking about this particular casting. I think I just committed a die-cast felony by doing that. And you guys all committed a die-cast misdemeanor if you're still watching. Alright, so there you have it. I do not have all of these 240 castings that have been released, but these are the 6 that I have. 5 of the 6, well, 4 of the 6 are pretty bad. 2 or 3 of them are awful. 2 or 3 of them are bad. And one of them is decent. I would put it between okay and good. It's not good, but it's not okay. It's somewhere in between. So that's decent. And that's the blue one. But I still like this Baja. I will not purchase any more of these, though. I can tell you that. This is not a casting I will be buying. This blue one and this Baja one give me all that I need. Now, if they put a Brie out with this configuration, basically with this deco and this configuration, I'd probably buy that. And the only other one I'd buy is if they put one out with this configuration and a silver color. Hats off to Greenlight also for doing the wood steering wheel on this. These old Z's came with wooden steering wheels, or simulated wood, synthetic wood. And the blue one, as you can see, is the only one. Only one. But that is a respectable looking car. All right, everyone. Thank you for checking out my video. Hit the like button, please. Please subscribe. Please share the video, all the videos, so I can get that money, so that I can buy more die-cast, so that I can show you guys more die-cast. You all have a good Sunday. Go Broncos. I'll holler at the next one.